For further analysis, we're joined from London by political and economic analyst Mr. Babak Imamian. Welcome to Qnews Economic Bulletin. And sir, I would like to start by asking you, how do you interpret the recent Eurozone economic data showing a slight 0.1% GDP growth in Q2 2025 and the uptick in economic activity in July, especially in the services sector?
Well, thank you for your question. This 1% economic growth is not something to be celebrated. Right now, realistically, we need the economy to be growing in Europe generally by not only Eurozone, but I mean United Kingdom and other countries around Eurozone by about 5 to 6%. But right now, we have the legacy of COVID, and also we are going through the legacy of Ukraine war, which I think it has impacted the Eurozone or European economy in terms of changing it from consumer goods economies now to military economies. That's what we see. There is that change from consumer goods economy to military economy. Also, the other aspect of it is the Ukraine war. Not only it has produced high energy costs, not only it has created high inflation, also Europe has lost a market, the Russian market. So the sooner the Ukraine war is sorted out, the better it will be for Europe.
So how significant is the impact of easing inflation pressures, with Eurozone inflation steadying at around 2% and services inflation rising slightly for the overall economic recovery?
Well, in comparison, the inflation rate is very good. And the ECB, also the rate cuts, they've been very helpful. And we are expecting 2 more rate cuts. So ECB is, if we quote President Donald Trump, they are doing much better than the Federal Reserve are doing. Or in this case, Bank of England, which the rate is at 4.25%. Much higher than the 2% of ECB. So I think both in terms of what ECB is doing great job in stimulating the economy in the Eurozone.
So can the recent stabilization in factory activity and modest hiring increases in the Eurozone be seen as some sort of signs of sustainable growth, or are these just improvements fragile?
Well, it all depends on what business model are we looking for Europe. Europe was very much involved in globalization, where all the jobs went to China, all the production went to China, and corporates made money by having cheap products, selling them into Europe. Now we are going through re-globalization because they realized globalization did nothing for the small businesses in Eurozone and for the rural industries. So this process of going through re-globalization, where manufacturing is coming back to Europe, part of it is the defense fund, European Defense Fund, and also, again, expanding the military industry in Europe is a part of the reindustrialization of Eurozone.
To what extent is the Eurozone's economic recovery dependent on external factors like global commodity prices or US economic policies?
Well, it all depends on what markets you're going to export with, or what trade treaties you have with international markets. Right now, Europe has been so preoccupied with the effects of Ukraine war and actually handling the Ukrainian war that they've lost concentration on international affairs. They are far behind. You don't see them. You see them hardly involved in the Middle East or even in other countries. And that's the reason this Ukraine war has had a psychological as well as economical effect on Europe.
How might increasing the defense budget in the Eurozone impact the overall economic performance in both the short and medium term?
Short term, it will be fine. There is a plan for Europe to, in terms of industrial military, decouple itself from United States. That would take, they say, something like 800 billion euro of investment and it would take at least 10 years. So I would say in short term, it will not be that much. But again, in the short term, there is something like 50 to 100 billion going into the industry. So it is expanding, but then military industry, there has a limit how it improves the economy. A good economy is based on consumer good economy rather than a military economy.
Okay. So could higher defense spending stimulate economic growth through job creation, industrial activity, or technological innovation, or might it crowd out other productive public investments?
But for all these things that you mentioned, you need long-term projects. But what Europe suffers from is they have too many short-term governments keep changing the policies of the previous government. So whatever we say now, or whatever the present governments are saying or planning, there is no reason that the next government in 2 years' time or 4 years' time will not reverse those policies. So that's one of the things about Europe, that long-term policies are not
effective
sustainable
or sustainable in a way, right?
Yeah.
What are the potential fiscal risks associated with boosting defense expenditures amid all these efforts to maintain inflation targets and fiscal discipline?
Well, right now, Europeans have concentrated too much on social benefits, and cutting back on those to actually increase this defense spending is going to have a political ramification, and also it would make a lot of people upset because their social benefits will be cut. So there is that aspect of it. Then again, which politicians are prepared to go through that pain?
Okay, and how might increased defense expenditures affect the Eurozone's trade balance given the dependencies on imported defense materials or exports?
Then again, I go back, it would take at least 10 years for the, let's call it, European military industrial complex to actually become a viable force. So nothing immediately. It would take at least something like 10 years. And that is, again, if all the governments commit to that project the next 10 years.
Well, from London, that was political and economic analyst Mr. Babak Imamyan. Thank you so much for your insights.